Wondering how you, as an iGaming B2B supplier, can enter the US market? Then we have something special for you. InternetVikings is conducting a free webinar to answer that very question. Our speakers, Jesper Kärrbrink, co-founder and creative director at Green Jade Games, and Elena Kvakova, head of the US expansion at InternetVikings. During this event, you'll learn how and where to enter the US market as a European iGaming company. What are accreditation requirements that will suit your need best? How the pandemic impacted the US gaming market? What are the specifics of regulations, compliance, and taxation in different states? Our webinar starts now.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our today's webinar brought to you by InternetVikings. Entering the US market is a hot topic at the moment, and it is a rather complicated one. So wouldn't it be great if someone with practical experience and who has thoroughly studied the issue shared their thoughts? If this is your question, then you come to the right place. The topic of our webinar is how to enter the US as an iGaming B2B supplier. And we are excited to see so many people with us today, and in time, we appreciate that very much. So hello, everybody. Traditionally, at our webinars, we would like to learn more about you. So please share in the chat your name and where you're from, so we can get to know you a little better, to know you at all. So who do we have here? I saw Reno from Nevada. So hello, Reno. Who do we have else? Martin from Germany. Hi, Martin. Good to have you with us today. Anna from Ukraine. Sebastian from Belgium. Leo from Uppsala, Sweden. Hi, guys. Per from Playstar. Oh, I cannot read that fast. Andrew from Germany. Lithuania, Romania, London, Stockholm, Israel. Wonderful. That's quite an impressive and international audience we have today, because we understand that the issue that we're going to talk about today is very, very interesting. It's pressing one, because we understand that states is slowly opening up. So it will be a great and profound conversation today. I have no doubt in that. So it is great to have all of you with us today, and especially great to have our speakers, Jesper Kärrbrink and Elena Kvakova. Mr. Jesper Kärrbrink is a co-founder and creative director at Green Jade Games. Jesper is one of the pioneers of the iGaming industry. Since 1993, he has been the CEO of several companies, including Svenska Spel and Mr. Green. In 2017, he founded an iGaming studio, Green Jade Games. Jesper has also been acting on a number of boards and is the co-author of 3 books. Is that so, Jesper?
Yes, that's correct. But none of them are about gaming. They're crime novels.
Yeah. Okay. But that's quite an impressive achievement, I must say. Something interesting we learn about you today. Miss Elena Kvakova with us today, head of the US expansion at InternetVikings. For the past decade, Elena has been working with the US market primarily in the capacity of business development and operations leader. She has helped develop and grow hosting and domain name products for one of the US domain name registrars. At the end of 2020, Elena joined InternetVikings and has been leading the company's advancement into the US market since. Hello, Elena. Glad to have you with us today.
Hello, Vladimir. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jesper. Thanks, Elena. Before I give the mic to them, I would like to make 2 quick announcements. Firstly, I want to thank our audience. I want to thank you guys for your activity even before the webinar. We received many questions in the registration forms, and you can see some of them in the chat right now. You'll be able to see them in a moment. Here's the first one, and there will be more. These questions will be answered first during the Q&A time, which we're going to have in the end of our webinar. So stay tuned if you want to hear the answers to these questions or to your own questions, which you can also ask in the chat during the webinar. So don't be shy. Please ask as many questions as you want. I'm not sure that we're going to have enough time to answer all of them. But if you if you will be first, probably, I'm almost sure we'll have time to answer your specific question. And my second announcement is about the opportunity to book a free personal consultation with Elena Kvakova to receive her expert advice on the matter of entering the US market. At the end of the webinar, we'll share the link with which you will be able to do exactly that. So you'll be able to schedule your appointment. So think about that. And with no further ado, I will give the stage to our speakers. Jesper, Elena, it's your time.
Thank you, Volodymyr. It's a fantastic introduction, and welcome everyone. It seems that we have a quite international audience, and we're happy for that. And me and Elena being on 2 time zones here, so we kind of, it's an early morning for Elena, and it's a late afternoon for me. But we are super prepared, and we're super excited about this one. And Volodymyr mentioned it, and the US is probably the hottest gaming market there is right now, and I would say it's a bit similar to Europe 5 years ago when it comes to investors' interest and growth opportunities and so forth. And there's been numbers of webinars and seminars covering the US market, but very few with a topic of B2B, and that's what we hope to change here today. So, but before we start, I would like Elena to take us a bit back, because this has been US has been perhaps the blackest of the black markets. You didn't enter there. Not even the most daredevil black sites dared to enter the US with the risk of ending up in a American prison or getting FBI after them or whatever. And so there was a federal ban for decades or for centuries, and now that's gone. So where do we start, Elena?
Absolutely, Jesper. So it's been a very black market for almost 26 years. And it's been not even 3 years since the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban allowing states to legalize the sports betting if they wish. Up until recently, only Nevada and a handful of states could do that because they already had some type of wagering in place. And in this short period of time, almost 24 states have made the retail or even online gambling legal in the US. And the very well-known global events of the last year have only sped that up.
True. So basically, if I remember correctly, there are 16 states today allowing gambling?
Yes, there are 16 states in total. Majority of them allow retail, unfortunately, so far. But also quite a few states are picking up the pace and passing the legislation for online since retail opportunities have not been available for a while.
We have to understand. So these 15 states we see here, the gray mark, they are offering online gambling.
Correct.
In some sort.
Correct.
Yeah, but not all. Sorry, not all of those are online casino. There's a mix here of sportsbook because it differs from state to state. Some states are doing both, and some states are only doing sportsbook.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. So how it develops in the US is they go from sports betting into casino and hopefully into the fantasy sports. It's not necessarily the rule for all of the states, but sports betting is the first step. And so from those 15 states, only 5 of them allow casinos, which is unfortunate.
And those are, which are those?
They are New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, and Michigan. Michigan is the newcomer, as well as West Virginia. New Jersey and Pennsylvania have been around for a while. Delaware isn't that cohort as well, but they only allow, it's very limited, meaning that you would have to do it on premises or the registration requirements have to happen in casinos and stuff. So Delaware is there, but yeah, there is only a handful of states that allow casino providers to join. Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
And we're coming back to how big they are and what the turnover is and so forth. But what you're saying here, and we'll come back to this as well later, it was a federal ban for 26 years, but it's not a federal legislation. Each of these states are regulated by themselves as an individual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So what Supreme Court did is that they only struck down the federal the federal ban. And now it's up to the states to basically go ahead and pass the legislation, either allowing or not allowing it, or keep not allowing it. It's also good to mention right now the Wire Act. It basically forbids the gaming operators from crossing the state lines, meaning that in order to sign up and wager, you must be located in state. And it's true for both a player, casino, and a sportsbook operator. So if you are a sportsbook in every state you want to operate in, you would need to get a license from in-state gambling authority, enter into an agreement with a land-based casino, as well as set up your operation in that state, which is, of course, a major roadblock for many, many businesses right now.
So the myth about people traveling over the bridges to New Jersey, that's actually true.
It is very true. I must confirm that as a New Yorker. Yes.
Exactly. So when the New Yorkers are really going for online gambling, they take the car and they drive over the bridge, and then they can gamble actually or place a bet. But this has a lot of implications that we will come back to later, because this makes it's not a one state, it's not a one certification or one license. It's a handful of licenses. And if you have an outlook of the states not being regulated yet, do you have a picture of that, or do you have an idea about where we're heading in this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, 5 states allow in-person gambling: New York, Montana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and New Mexico. New York is hopefully going to move forward with legalizing online gambling as well, because there is a major market right now, and a lot of players are just moving into, basically channeling into New Jersey revenue, which is a major loss for the state. We don't anticipate this to happen this year, hopefully next year or in 2023. There are also states that have already started either moving towards the retail legislation or are already doing something for online legislation. There are 19 of them so far. And as you can see, some states are closer to that than the others. We mark them with asterisks there. So we're hoping that this year, 1, 2, 3 states will pass that legislation. And based on what's happening in the world, we do believe that to be in North Dakota, North Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine. My personal bet is Georgia, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. What about you, Jesper? What do you think?
Sure. What's your take? What is driving this? Is it liberalization? Is it getting more aware to gambling? Or is it the fact that the state actually need the tax revenue right now?
I would say that in US, it mostly works as let's look at what your neighbor is doing. Mm-hmm. So there is a movement over the border, and they're like, okay, fine, then this is working, and we can do that too. In case of New York and Connecticut, I think they're seeing how much of a success online gambling could be. An example of New Jersey, and they want to take a share of that revenue. So that's what happens mostly.
Good, because I think this differs a bit from the Europe. In Europe, it's very much about canalization. You want to take back the gambling or the gambling from the black market to the regulated market. And in the US, it's not that much discussion, or have I missed it because I'm not there? It seems more, everyone knows that the US black market, when it comes to the sportsbook, is huge. It's so big. Yeah. It's totally unregulated in basically every state and every city, and now one by one is regulating. But is there any discussion about canalization and making it safer for the players, making it more regulated, putting in responsible gaming efforts, etc., or conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, gray market has always been there, and I think what states are realizing now when they're seeing, states like New Jersey or Nevada, is that it can generate a huge revenue, even if done properly and responsibly. So now, there is no doubt that, even with the legalization of marijuana this year, we're seeing that the states can do this. It's more of a matter, what parties have this on their ballot, and like what are the government's if they're more liberal or if they're more conservative. So when I'm saying that there are 19 states that have that in the works, I think everyone realizes it's more just up to the government to reach the consensus on passing that into their state's legislation.
And if I challenge you and say, I think that will happen in like 85% of the states, would you disagree with me over time?
I would say absolutely. I would say, you said 85? For 85%, I would say that we would probably need to have at least 6 years, honestly. It's not just, it's not the matter of, complexity or not complexity. Is that some governments, are not willing to do that, and we have to wait for the next election, which is 2 years away, and then for the new government to be formed, and then for this legislation to start going through the chambers. So it's very much dependent on just the timeline of how it's going to be processed.
And what surprises me is that, and you're probably right, that is the reason. And I mean, look at California. It's one of the most liberal states in the U.S. It's legalized cannabis or marijuana, and still they said a no to the gaming here. And we also know if I'm correct here, it's the 8th or 9th largest economy in the world. And
that's
we
right.
Know it's a bit stressed economy as well, so they will really need the tax.
That's right. Yeah, I think everyone is very upset about California, and it's not going at a faster pace. They did come very close to legalizing it in 2020, but the vote fell short. So yeah, I'm thinking, probably with the current government, it doesn't look like they're going to pass it until 2023, which is, again, not ideal for the market, but we just would have to.
I think actually it's not a bad thing, because it's so big. So if it comes state by state, it's actually easier for operators, and the operators are the first one in there and then the B2B kind of tag along, so to speak, and help them to set things up, whether that is affiliation or hosting services and such. So I'm not that. If that's like 2-3 years away, it's a good thing in my opinion. Good. This is really interesting. And the states today, which are the biggest ones? Where do we have the most revenue? I would guess New Jersey, because they started. But I also know that Pennsylvania and Michigan is picking up fast. Am I right?
Yes, you're very right. If we could look at the slide, we have here showing the revenue data for January 2021. As it is expected, New Jersey and Pennsylvania are the absolute leaders, mostly due to their pioneership. But also Indiana, only the newcomer, is very much picking up. And they're responsible, those 3 states are responsible for 80% of sports betting revenue of the US. And this number only keeps growing. Yeah,
it does. And actually, we had a question we said we should post the questions to later, but I have to ask one of the questions that we saw in the pre-registration, and that is, will the US gambling market, online market, be as big as the European? And what's your view on that one? I have my view, but I would like to hear yours first.
I would say that it's getting there very rapidly, and in 3-5 years, yes. More on the longer side, more like 5 years. But I do believe that it's a very promising market. And that's the whole reason why more and more companies want to move there, is because there is a huge amount of potential over there. And it has all the means to surpass the European market. What do you think?
I agree, totally agree. And I think it will be at least as big or perhaps even bigger, especially if we get to the 85% of all states and we include California, Florida, and New York in that one. It will actually pass the European market. But the interesting thing here is that it's the growth rate. The growth number will be crazy if we look at this over a 10 years time period. And that's what really is interesting from operators to be there, but also from investors' point of view. And that's also why this market is so hot now. It's not just a fling. This is a long-term, pretty safe race, so to speak. It's a safe bet to bet on the US gaming market, because, as you said, every state is doing what the neighbors are doing, and it seems that the first neighbors moving into the neighborhood was really happy, and then more and more people will come along. So this is really interesting.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. I'm just gonna turn on here we are. Quantity. We talked about states. We talked about how many operators do we have being active now in these states?
So I counted almost 22 operators. Again, we're going to see the consolidation in the most active states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Michigan also just only recently passed the legislation, but it's a very fast growing market and more operators are going there. And yeah, on the next slide, we do have a quick recap of who is there. All the biggest players are already there, and it's only the matter of time as to how fast they're going to expand to all the states, to all those 15 states that allow online gambling.
And this is interesting. My take is that this is the market for the big ones, not only because the market is big, but, and we're coming back to this pretty soon, because the licensing process is quite cumbersome. It's quite expensive. And you have to do it state by state. So the 400 casinos we see in Europe will most likely, in my opinion, not happen in the US. Are you sharing that?
No, honestly, I don't, because I do think that while it's easier for the biggest players to enter the state just because of the size of the capital and resources that I have at their disposal, just because of the opportunity and of the potential of the market, we're going to see more and more European providers and European books trying to go for that market share in the US. So again, like they're moving at a much slower pace, obviously, but it's definitely going to happen. And it's what we're already seeing. Like the smaller players are present in 1-2 states, but they're already I've seen on their websites that they're planning to expand to other states as well. It just sometimes, if you're a smaller company, the economy isn't there necessarily. But it's a good investment in the long term.
Good. Should we jump to that and see if we could talk a bit about the big hurdle? And in my opinion, that's the licensing requirement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Elena, you can't just set up a shop. That's impossible. You can't set up a shop, even if you're a B2B. And in Europe, as a B2B provider, we are, yes, as a game provider, you need to have a MJ license, you have the UKGC license, etc., etc. But if we take InternetVikings, we don't need a license to set up servers and hosting, doing cloud hosting for. But in the US, it's different.
Yes, it is a little different. Just to tie it all together a little bit. So we do think that we show you those graphs for the states which are the most active. For you as a B2B provider, we do believe that the best states to start in live in the intersection of those two worlds. And as for the number of the sportsbook available in each state, the leaders are the same. However, like again, that approach that the biggest market, the most amount of players, the most amount of potential customers, it's not necessarily the best approach for everyone, because it's going to very much depend on your company strategy, but also long-term and short-term goals. Sometimes even going for the smaller states like West Virginia or Virginia, that are only opening up, can be even a better bet for your business, because there is less competition, and striking a deal with one of even the casino in a smaller state can go a long way when we talk about expansion, because getting accredited in every state is going to be is a lot. Let's just dive into that.
Yeah, please do, because this is really interesting I think for all the viewers here on this webinar.
Yeah. Yes. So as we mentioned before, in most cases, to operate or provide services in iGaming industry, you're going to need a license. And licensing system is different from state to state, but it can be summarized in 3 tiers. There are operators. These are the entities that operate and manage players' information, payouts, that manage the casino itself. So those are, those are the casinos and sports books. Now there are service providers. They are the businesses who support the operation of online casino sportsbook. Software platform providers, as well as marketing affiliates that operating on revenue share model is going to belong to this tier. Licenses process for service provider is quite complex, as you can imagine, and it involves a lot of business and personal and financial disclosures, as well as the detailed description of every system that the game is going to use. But again, it is a little easier than being an operator. When it comes to the vendors are the companies that are providing the services to the service providers, but these services are not necessarily tailored for gambling. Like, for instance, in this tier, hardware providers, computer companies, and marketing agencies will belong to this tier. And it's usually free of charge. And the last tier is supporting staff. It's everyone from dealer to server maintenance personnel that needs to undergo a background check and receive their occupational license to work in US gambling industry. For most of us as a B2B providers, the 2 tiers in the middle will apply. It is also worth mentioning that even though the process in one state can be slightly different from the other state, in a nutshell, they are the same. And the information that you need to provide in your application is very similar.
I have been doing that for her. I'm the chairman of Power Play as well, and I've been doing some license applications, and it's a lot. Yeah, they are very similar from state to state, but it's a lot. It takes time. It's time consuming, not only for the company, but also for the board of directors and the employee, or some of the employees, the key employees, etc., etc.
Yeah, I have a quick list of the company of the information that they're asking, and that is to whoever of you who haven't started this process. It's company information and documents like certified copy and articles of incorporation, articles of organization, partnership agreement, trust agreement, including all amendments, annual and biannual reports for the past 3 years, and meeting minutes for the past 12 months, comprehensive financial report for the past 3 to 10 years. Some states just ask for different time periods, as well as personal history disclosure documents for each owner, officer, director, as well as their spouses, children, and sometimes parents and parents-in-law. So it is a lot. I just got tired reading all of this. Yeah, so imagine doing that for...
My father was a bit surprised when I called him and asked him about some of the details.
Yeah, it is a lot. But again, these mechanisms are in place to make sure that there are no organized crime in the US, and everyone is going through this process.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a lot, and you have to be prepared to it. Actually, I think it's a good thing, because it's a way to make sure that the people that are in the gambling industry should be in the gambling industry, so to speak. And that's not only in Hollywood movies that there always been a kind of connection between the mafia and the gambling. So I understand where this comes from. It's once again, it's actually a good thing in that sense. I saw another question popping by on the chat here, so I'm actually going to post it because it fits so perfectly well here. And this is coming from Khrushchev. Can company without a license, just with vendor registration, create tech solutions to be used by US operators?
No. So if you want to sell a software that is going to be used by a gambling company in a gambling process, like geo-compliant software or payment methods, or even the platform, you have to be a service provider. If you're asking about vendors, think about Dell or Samsung or those providers who are just supplying the equipment. So those are going to be in the tiers of the vendors, as well as the marketing agencies. For instance, if you have a sports book and you want to improve your CEO, the marketing agency, if you're going to outsource it, will have to undergo through vendor registration process.
Good. That answers the question, I hope. Yeah. Sorry. Please continue with your slide there, because this is really, really important. This is part of the knowledge sharing here, but because we have been looking at all these things right now, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to say that even though the licensing process are really cumbersome, the good news is that you can do 2 or more states at the same time, and the states provide temporary licenses, which means that once you have collected all of the documents and paid the fees, you can go live in as soon as 1 month is the best case scenario, but on average is 2 to 4 months. You can go live already with a temporary permit. So this is good to know for the businesses.
On that note, what would it take to make a vendor license in time, not in effort, but in time? We start today. When could we go live in the US?
So that depends on how fast we put together all the documents, how fast we answer all of those questions that they're asking, how fast we can draw up our organizational structures and pay the fees.
And that depends on where you are, because they have to be translated. If you're Swedish, they have to be notified by the notaris publicus, etc., etc., etc. So
yes,
it takes some time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and also, like, again, if your company is really big and you have big boards of directors, so if there are a lot of stakeholders involved, you would have to provide information and reach out to each and every person. So it can be, probably it's going to be faster for the smaller companies and longer for the bigger companies. But again, if you're all hands on deck, if you have two owners, I think the information can be gathered in a few weeks. And then I would recommend going through everything with a lawyer that is specialized in gambling law. And then once it is applied, you can get your temporary license if everything is in order in 2 months, 2-3 months.
So basically 2 to 6 months.
Yes.
Good. Should we look at the you have a list of things that you really have to go through when you
yes
do this. So,
yes. So we thought that it might be really helpful for you guys as a B2B providers to have a checklist for yourself as to what exactly it is needed, because there's a lot of regulations and it's all very cumbersome. So we created this slide for you as to what exactly you're going to need. The requirements for a platform provider or a service provider and a casino and sportsbook are pretty much the same. And they consist of either having an agreement with an in-state brick and mortar casino, then operator license in that state. You're going to have a hosting, equipment, and US company and tax registration.
So this is very much about you have to kind of partner up with the US. Let's say that we come from Sweden or somewhere in Europe and you want to enter the US market. It seems that you have to partner up with the US partner. You have to have a co-location. We know that all the service has to be in a casino proximity and so forth. What does that mean?
That means that if you are an operator, you have to have a license to be an operator. And they're in the US, they are called skins. Skins are something that is provided to a casino. So it's like a parent license, and there are all these sub licenses that can be issued to the operators. So this is what you're going to need. And about the hosting is yes, players' data platform, the whole online gambling platform have to be located on a licensed server, in a licensed premises, and serviced by licensed staff.
Which is already bricks and mortar, already existing.
Yes. Yeah. So not to reinvent the wheel, all the brick and mortar casinos already have that infrastructure in place. So that's why a lot of European providers are choosing to go for that part, for co-location or hosting with brick and mortar casinos as well.
And this gives us a very good inline to another question asked by Andrew Collins. Can I use AWS for cloud hosting anywhere in the US?
No. As much as I'd love to say yes to that, the question is no, because for the reasons that we just discussed, all the player data, they have to be located in state, on the licensed servers, and in licensed premises. As far as I know, Amazon is not looking to do that anytime soon for various reasons, probably. But no, you cannot use AWS. It has to be a dedicated licensed hosting provider.
So basically, this is as far as where we can get from cloud hosting.
Yes, I mean, it can still be a private cloud. Again, like private cloud is only a name cloud, but yeah, you can still do private cloud in brick and mortar casino. But yeah, it's not public cloud or hybrid is not an option.
Good, fantastic. Should we? Elena, this has been really, really good and very good insights for me and hopefully for the audience as well. And the question that comes now, this is the Internet Vikings webinar, and where are Internet Vikings into this one? I think we should really discuss that as well. Whatever you do, you are the head of US expansion.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that. So unfortunately, we don't have a hosting just yet, but we're on track to get it anytime soon. What we can do right now is we are happy to talk to the companies who are looking to enter the US market and help them with the requirements for the licenses, or we even have already a few connections that are licensed vendors. So if you're a little further down the process, and if you have an agreement with the casino and the hosting, and you need to source a reasonably priced hardware, we can help you with that too. And yeah, hopefully in the next few months, you're gonna hear from us in a nice press release saying that we're open for business in the US. But as you can imagine, just the requirements is a lot to process right now. But we're on our way to opening up a license hosting for you as well.
So basically, we are living as we are learning, and we are doing exactly what you have been talking about here right now. And of course, the end game for Internet Viking is to supply world-class licensed and ISO certified hosting in the US market, because we see that we have a role to play there. We know how good we are in Europe, and we know that there's demand for the same services in the US. And of course, we will be there. And that's also why we recruited Elena to have feet on the ground and to have some brilliant brains over there helping us with this.
Yes, absolutely.
Ooh. Yes, I think we are. I mean, there's so many questions. I think actually we should spend some time on trying to answer them. And the first one, with the risk of the marketing department being super mad at me here, but that is Gaetano from Italy. After webinar, is it possible to get the slides? And I would say yes on this one.
Absolutely, and we have a little extended deck that contains a little more information about the US market. So yeah, we will be more than happy to share it with you.
Good. You broke up a bit there, but the short answer to that one is yes, and we have an even more extended deck that we will present.
Yes.
Okay, another question we have got here from actually earlier in the pre-registration, and given that the US slot players are pretty much conditioned to classic slots, do you feel that the European theme slots will be able to transition over well enough for it to be a viable option for up-and-coming slot studio? I perhaps could answer that one. And this is an interesting question. And basically what happens when you see a market going from bricks and mortar only to online, the first players moving are the already... that's the players that already plays at the casino or they play on video lottery terminals in other markets, etc. Those are the players moving first online. And those players are really keen on playing the same kind of games that they played on the physical or the land-based machines as they do on the online machines. So I think the first wave, it will be a lot of games that has the same look and feel that you find in the casinos. Second wave, the game will be more... I shouldn't call them advanced, but they will be a bit of different games. And there the European games are coming in, etc., etc. I also personally think that the US market is much more mature when it comes to mixing skill and RNG decisions. So I think we will see more arcade-style gambling games. And I know Gameco, the US company, is doing this on land-based, and they will also do this on online. Green Jade, which I represent, are also doing this. So yes, I think it's a mix. We will see a lot of American-themed games in the beginning, but then we will see more and more of internationally themed games, if we call them that. And I also think live casino will work fantastically well as arcade games. Let's let's see. What concerns, if any, does the new U.S. administration present to the expanding online gambling landscape across the states? And what are the biggest barriers to entry for a small or even a startup iGaming B2B operator? That's a good question, and I think that kind of summarizes it. So, and Elena, do you see any difference in this administration compared to the former administration? I mean, we just had a new election. We have Biden as president, etc., etc. Does he has a different agenda on this?
So they have not. That's a really great question, first of all, and I think the answer to that would be it's really hard to judge right now because we would have to see what kind of laws they're passing, as well as to look at what states are doing. In terms of the federal, I do think that it's going to slow down smaller things like crypto adoption by the sports books and casinos, just because. Again, the newly appointed Secretary of State, Janet Yellen, has repeatedly said that it's linked to terrorism since her appointment in January. So I'm thinking that those things are going to be slower to adopt. But it's very much up to the state government. And across many states, we have gotten new government not that long ago. So we will just have to see how states are going to do that.
But basically what you're saying is not so much a federal decision, but a state decision. The federal decision is already made 3 years ago, and administration will not really change that.
Right. I mean, again, the main administration, the things that they can do is they can revisit the Wire Act, which prohibits the interstate operation. But I don't think they're going to do that just yet because they only started in January and there are more pressing issues that they're addressing right now.
But that would rather boost the gambling rather than take it down, because then you can. Yeah,
everybody's waiting for it.
So that means that Elena doesn't have to take the car over the bridge to New Jersey to gamble.
Yes.
Sure about that. Yes. That's good. And yes, the cryptocurrency. We had another question a bit earlier about crypto and. Thank you, Xena. You're fantastic putting these questions up here. And carrier billing. So basically, your take on this is that this will take some time to penetrate the U.S. gambling market.
Yeah, I think this is just because, I mean, again, what we've seen so far, the new administration is saying is that they're not very receptive of the crypto in spite of its obvious security benefits. And I think it's going to be a while before we adopt that. And even carrier billing, like even though, as we see, US is consistent with Europe, 70% of players play on their mobile. Carrier billing, I think, is closer than crypto, but it still might be a while. We just have to see how states are going to be.
At the same time, we see how crypto is getting more and more popular among the sites in Europe, so from a gaming and a gambler's perspective, I think there's a demand for it. But you're right, legislation often lags a bit there, and perhaps the US has a bit different view on the cryptocurrency so far. But let's see. Another question we got here in the beginning from the pre-registration is how the US market is different from the European market. That's a very interesting question and a broad answer as well. The question is really broad. If I were to answer it in a short form, I would say that it's more restrictive. As you can see, and those restrictions, they create all sorts of roadblocks for the B2B providers like us to enter it. But there is a huge demand. And again, as Jesper was saying earlier, we do think that it's going to get just as big as European market in a few years. I mean, and it's a difference right now. I think this market will be faster growing. From my point of view, there's right now not as much focus on responsible gambling as it is in Europe, but that will come. So basically, what we see in Europe, which is a couple of years ahead in this time, that's not always that happens when we compare to US, but in this sense we are. I think we can see what has happened here will basically replicate in the US over time. So and that's another good thing, because if you're a European operator, then basically you have the book on what will happen in the US. I understand why so many US companies are now hiring European directors and expertise, etc., because it's happened here already, or we've done it, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question here from Yulu. Are there talks or political desire about instituting responsible gambling regulation? If so, could you see state lotteries being affected by these regulations as well, or are they too instilled in the state budgets to ever be touched? That's the really interesting question, because this is what I've been. And sorry for not seeing your name there, How I saw the wrong name on the chat there.
So from what I've seen, like when you look at all these forms that they're getting you to fill out before you even get your license, a lot of those questions are about responsible gaming. And even if you go onto the websites of the players that are already in the market, they all have the disclaimers about responsible gaming, about self-exclusion lists. So I would say that on a basic level, it has already been instilled into the process itself, and the government is taking it really seriously, because I do feel that now when they're late to the whole world gambling party, they're like, oh, we might as well do it right. So I do feel that definitely the responsible gaming is going to mature over years, but it already has a pretty good base, and the states are responsible themselves about regulating that and making sure that all the providers are compliant, because they do take it very seriously.
But at the same time, the state lottery seems to be protected, because the license you can get is a sportsbook license or an online casino license. You're not really getting a lottery license. So yeah. And that's nothing new. We have the same in Sweden. The lottery is kind of out of touch, and so that's no. They will most likely prevent or protect those, and that's of course for tax reasons. It's we all know that those are they bring a lot of money into the state treasures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here.
I see a good question from Jason. In terms of certification, what do you expect states to work with third-party test labs, or rather to follow New Jersey example, for example, manage it in-house? That's a really good question, and I think a lot of European B2B providers are excited about it. And the question is, we do see that a lot of operators are looking to hire B2B providers, European B2B providers who are experienced in that. I would say that it is true for medium-sized companies. We have seen news that Caesars, BetMGM, they are acquiring companies that provide software platforms already. So they're going to have it in-house, but not everyone has the luxury to do that. And that's why they're very much looking forward to providers like you and like us to bring our European expertise to help them build their online presence. So it's a good news for us. And yeah, the trend overall is to outsource it to a third-party company.
Fantastic. I actually think we are almost emptying all. There are some questions up here. I think we answered them to some extent. And we have Ivan, a long-time slot designer. He said that slot teams can be unpredictable. You are so right, Ivan. You can never, ever expect what is hitting and not hitting. That's for sure. But we were generalizing it on a bit more philosophical level here. You have a certain style in different regions. And we know that if you hit that style in that region, it usually works better. But what in detail is working, wow, if you had that knowledge, then we wouldn't sit here doing webinars. We would be in a warmer place than Sweden. No, I'm kidding. It's lovely. Okay, Elena, are we about to round up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm looking through the questions.
Might we have the opportunities?
Sorry, say it again.
Anything else you want to tell this fantastic audience while we have the opportunity?
No, it's just been a great conversation. We hope that it has been really useful for you. We have tried to answer all of the questions, and I'm looking through them right now. Yeah, I think we got pretty much all of them. But if you feel like there's a question that you want answered, or if you want to answer it, or if you want to ask it in private, please reach out to us. You are going to be able to book a meeting with us, and we can talk some more about it. It's a very exciting topic, and yeah, judging by where everyone is very excited about US market. And yeah, we feel like European companies who have really good experience with that can really make a difference.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And thanks a lot, Elena, for sharing all your wisdom into this. It's been fantastic. And to the audience, this is really, really great. You have been such an engaged audience, and we can basically see and hear how the keyboard has been typing during we have been chatting here. And I really thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And now over to our host, Volodymyr.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesper. Thank you, Elena, for this profound discussion. I believe there is a lot of value in what you shared with us today. I have no doubt that the information you shared will help our audience to advance their businesses into the US. And as mentioned already, and by the way, Jesper, we're not mad at you at all. All attendees will receive the recording and slides afterwards, after the webinar. Maybe not today, but you surely will receive your copy. And those slides will be even extended. So thank you for joining us today. You will have some extra treat from InternetVikings. And a couple of announcements before we finish. As promised, you have the opportunity to book a personal consultation with Elena Kvakova and receive her input about entering the US market. Now you can see a link in the chat box, calendly.com, Elena Kvakova. And by clicking on it, you'll be able to have a chance to schedule your 15 minutes appointment with Elena, and I'm sure she'll help you to outline the strategy for scaling into the US. So please do that if you're interested in scaling your business to the US market. Go ahead and book your meeting with Elena. And some of you might know that InternetVikings regularly conduct webinars, and I wonder if there are people who have been to our webinars before. So if you were, please type number one, if you have been to just one of our webinars before, and type 2 for 2 and 3 for 3 and so on. 31013100. So some new people and some old, well, not old, but 4. We have some experienced.
Volodymyr, from a old gaming director's perspective, we have a really good customer acquisition in this, and we also have high retention. This has been perfect.
Yeah, great. It's good to, I agree with you, Jesper, and it's good to have so many new people and so many experienced attendees, and that's just fantastic. And this time we want to make it easier for you to remember about our next meeting, so you can register to it now. And you better do it, because InternetVikings is preparing something very special for you next time. While many hosting and security companies talk about Schrems 2 ruling, we talk with Mr. Max Schrems himself. So on April 28th at 4 p.m. Central European time, we are going to sit with Max Schrems and discuss in depth the issues surrounding the protection and transferring of data between the European Union and the United States, and also what iGaming operators should do in order to protect themselves from the risks involved. So this is an event you cannot afford to miss, and you have to have a chance to register right now via the link you see in the chat. So please do it right now. We are looking forward to seeing you on April 28th at 4 p.m. Central European time. Okay, that's about it. Once again, thanks to our speakers for sharing their expertise, and thank you everyone for being here today. We appreciate you being here with us. And please visit our website, and we'll see you next time, hopefully on April 28th. Have a nice day, and cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.